Hi guys, this is Vitaly with AFT Dispatch and A2C Logistics, and in today's video I wanted to break a common misconception, misunderstanding, and a myth in the trucking industry about who controls the markets, who controls freight volume, and always pinning each other at each other's throats is not going to win this battle. So we're going to cover that in today's video. The brokers are stealing all our money. The brokers are controlling all the markets. No, they're not. The brokers aren't controlling the freight markets. The freight markets are just simply too big to be controlled by any one group. And this is nothing more than just a cop-out and an excuse. Brokers are simply doing the legwork, putting the deal together in order to be able to sell that deal to you. It is up to the truckers to make sure that they don't sell themselves short. But at the end of the day, brokers also need to make their cut. Now, it may seem like I'm being a broker apologist, and that's not the case at all, but I just want to make sure that we're operating in the same reality, because at the end of the day, it's not about our hopes and wishes and how we would want things to be. It's rather how they really are today, and how does this freight end up moving around? How do we obtain some of that freight, and how do we get it at a better price so that you can stay in business and get through these difficult times? At the end of the day, it's in everyone's interest to make sure that they optimize and build a much more efficient trucking business. Brokers do the legwork, but they can only do that if there's freight on the market. The truth is that we're a consumer nation. I mean, we've heard this time in, time out. We've heard this for years and decades and whatnot. Let's think about it. What do we produce? What do we actually export? Or more importantly, let's look at what do we import. If we consume, there's freight to move. If we don't consume, there's no freight to move. It's consumer spending that drives the freight markets. The problem is that consumer spending was at 1% in June and at 0.1% in July, so 10 times less. And that tends to have repercussions in a real freight market, in the real world. It just simply takes time because this works like a tidal wave. It takes time to build up and finally crash. Plus, we shouldn't forget that people are buying less using inflated currency. So they're getting less stuff for the same amount. It's important to understand that freight markets, just like any markets, go through cycles. And like I said earlier, this is too big of a market to control. It's like saying, let's control the price of gold, or let's control the real estate market. Yeah, you could have some big players have an impact, that will be short-lived, or you could have an open market that we're in that will be variable based on different types of market indicators. We made a video about crash market indicators. You might want to take a look at that. We'll leave a little card in the corner so you guys can explore that. It was a very popular video, but I digress. And what we have now is lower consumption and higher inflation. So what's the solution? Many of you guys are going to hate the solution, but ultimately it's all about going out and staying out. All right, I'm talking OTR. You go out and you stay out. An OTR driver stays over the road for weeks at a time. People used to do that, and some guys still do it to this day. And I know that this isn't going to, win me any friends, but the bottom line is that at the end of the day, you're playing a game of averages. And most people in the trucking industry are looking outside of the big players that are doing really well. Most people are very short-sighted, and they're looking at their short-term averages versus playing the long game of, let's say average out 5 years. Most people average out what they did this week. No one talks about what their, what the average is for the, last 5 years, or for going to be for the next 5 years. Everyone's talking about miles per gallon, your RPM rate per mile, and all sorts of other things, but no one's actually trying to figure out, well, how am I going to stay in business to get an RPM over the next 5 years? And of course, the way you do that is by going out there and actually running your business. You're an owner-operator, so you own your equipment, you own your business. This is your baby, but now you have to operate this thing in order to make money. Improve efficiency in every aspect of your business. Lease costs, fuel, the rates that you're getting, insurance costs, how much is factoring, all sorts of external costs that are in your control. You can shop around for insurance, you can shop around for factoring, you can shop around for a leasing company. Maybe you're paying too much, but you have to know your costs, which brings me to know your operating costs. Most people I talk to have no idea when it comes to operating costs, so make sure to get that knocked out. What does it cost you, bottom dollar, to operate your rig? How much does it cost if that rig just sits there and you keep your authority active, or you stay in operations under whatever lease program you're in, and just don't drive. How much does that cost you? Most people have no idea, but they should. Trucking is a game of averages. Play the long game, and that's how you're going to be successful. If you're trying to make it out quick, the same thing's gonna happen to you as the same guys who opened up their trucking companies, 3 months ago, 6 months ago. It was the California gold rush all over again. Everyone rushed to get into a trucking because everyone's talking about the big bucks that you could make in the trucking industry. Unfortunately, these guys bought in right before the bubble burst. And now people are saying, well, I can't make this kind of money. The market's unfair. They need to pay me more money in order for me to operate. No, they shouldn't have to pay for your inefficiency, your business, because you bought into equipment and started a business at the end of its fall, right when the bubble is about to burst. The market doesn't have to pay for your errors. Currently, there are a lot of truckers who are very disappointed in what they're seeing out of their trucking business. There are definitely some strategies and things that even they can do to make sure to stay afloat. But the majority of the guys who've opened their business right before the market's tanked will or may have already gone out of business. And it makes sense why they're upset about that. A lot of people put in their entire life savings into this business and put they're all into it, and they simply could not hold back against the market pressures that be in today's market. But we have to remember that every market is cyclical in nature, so you're always taking a risk. If you would have entered the business right when it started to pick up, you would have ridden that roller coaster ride all the way up to the top, and then you would have sold at the top, gotten out. That would have been a perfect execution. The problem is that now we can say that because we can look back and we can know our low, highs and lows. But at the time, you don't know if something is a low or if it's actually a high. Will things just continue to decline, or will they actually this will be the floor and things will start to improve? So you're always taking that risk. And some people did that perfect execution. They did get in at the bottom or near the bottom. They did ride out the entire period, and they did get out of business and sell their equipment. So there are some folks that did that. Others took the time to grow their business financially, make sure that they're on a much more solid foundation, expanded their equipment, their base, their drivers, and grew their business. Other people didn't. They've spent every dime that they made. COVID, for example, COVID created lower lows and higher highs. As I often say in other videos, what comes up must come down, and that is a perfect example of what we saw in the freight rates during that period of peak times of COVID. The freight rate spike that we saw was very unusual. For example, back in the day, a load that paid $1.20 to $1.40 for, say a reefer or something like that, that was cheap freight. That was right there at operating costs. That was cheap freight. But if you averaged out $2 or more, for the month, you had a good month. Nowadays, you can still average over $2, but it's no longer good enough because you have crazy high diesel costs. With that said, many guys also have crazy high operating costs that originate from very expensive, truck insurance premiums, very expensive cost on their equipment, their truck, their trailer, and other, areas of their business are just simply driving the price so high or the cost so high that they simply cannot make it. Whereas someone else with paid off equipment would be in a great spot and saying, look, even in this down economy, as you call it, I'm actually making more money than I did, for example, 3 years ago or 4 years ago. The good news is that you can make trucking work for you today by understanding basic market dynamics. How does the freight market work? You can understand that by looking at your operating costs, understand your business by looking at the operating costs and looking at what the freight markets have to offer. What are the highs? Where are the lows? What's the median price? And of course, get efficient. You can only lower your operating costs by becoming much more efficient, getting more efficient on the road, getting more efficient with the way that you run your business and the way you conduct yourself.
If this video hit home and you feel like there are things that you could be doing better in your business, running a much more efficient, effective trucking company, and again, it doesn't matter if you're a lease-on owner operator or a carrier operating under your own MC authority, we actually run and work with both types of trucking setups. We do work with lease-on owner operators and we do work with carriers under their own MC authority. The bottom line is that this is a time where we all have to tighten our belts, make sure that we're saving where we can and making the most out of the available market that's out there, which means that you really have to work with professionals and people that really know and have the experience in the industry to make sure to get you through these difficult times. If you have any questions whatsoever, please make sure to give us a call or even text us at 801-448 6363. You can also visit us on our website at aftdispatch.com/go and fill out our chat box at any one of our web pages. We'll be sure to get back to you, answer any and all questions that you may have. And most importantly, guys, leave your questions, comments in the comment section below. Make sure you smash the like button. And until next week, stay healthy, be wealthy.